kick off the show here.
We're agreeing.
Something cleaned up.
Welcome into the show Bill's Mafia. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, of course, Papa Ron. We, again, are the Mafia Cast, part of the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. I'm here with my hosts and good friends, Casey and Mike. What is going on, fellas?
Good evening. What's up? He's
Let me
muted.
just go ahead and unmic Casey there.
Thanks a lot, guys. But I'm still laughing at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I can't help it.
Ninja
Funny.
Power. Turtle Power. Great song. Okay, that was a great start to the show.
Yeah.
Talking about Ninja Turtles. All right, so let's kind of get into this thing. We're just going to jump right on in. Fun, interest. I don't know if fun is necessarily a word. Interesting week for sure on the minicamp front. You guys know where I stand as far as Stephon Diggs. We're going to start there, though, because let's just talk about this really quick, and then we'll move on from it and be done, because I think that's a horse that has been beaten repeatedly and is pretty much dead at this point. But I'm going to start with Mike. I want to start with Mike on this, and I kind of want to hear your take on it, and we'll go from there.
I mean, whatever. I like just put in the past. Whatever it is. And I do respect, players' privacy and things like that. So I try not to get too upset or worked up about it. I'm kind of understanding over the whole thing. I just hope it's not something too worrisome. Something seriously going wrong there. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, and I guess down the road, like for me, it's simple. Yes, you can have workplace disagreements, and you can have those arguments or whatever. Those arguments should be behind closed doors. And I know some people have told me, well, it was internal, and then McDermott made it public. No, he didn't. This started with Diggs months ago when he stormed out of the stadium with that playoff loss. That was the first, I guess, showing of frustration, right? So when somebody does that, yes, we want to respect players' privacies and everything, but they are on the worldly stage. I mean, the NFL is a worldwide sport at this point. Everybody's going to see that. Everybody knows that he did that. And then all off season, we have all the weird random tweets. All of that building up to day one not showing up for camp. Well, not showing up for practice, because we know he was there, right? Here's the thing for me. Like, if there's an issue with whoever it is, we've had 4 months to resolve this. Why is it going to this point? Why does it have to become a national news thing now? And it's June. Every little pin drop that happens is going to be news, and the media is going to jump all over that. And rightfully so. I mean, it's their job. But I feel like there should have been some phone calls. March, April, May. Hash it out, figure out what the problem is, and then move forward from it. Even the day of minicamp, okay, there's a disagreement. Let's go have practice, and then we'll come back to this conversation afterwards. They made a big spectacle of it, and they didn't need to. And to me, that falls largely on Diggs. I'm not completely absolving McDermott of this either. I do think he kind of mishandled some aspects of it. But to come out the following day and say, oh, well, he was excused by me. Why didn't you say that day before? That would have also resolved everything immediately. You just said, I've already excused him, we're fine. We're just working through a few things that we need to talk about, and then the world moves on. But that's not what happened. Instead, it became this big, blown-up thing. And to Mike's point, hoping that it's not a thing going forward or more worrisome, what happens if we get into the season and things don't go well. What happens if we get into a game and Diggs is open, Allen doesn't see him, and he throws it elsewhere, who doesn't make the catch for the first down, and we lose the game? I do have my concerns that every time now something happens that doesn't go Diggs' way, he's going to be vocal about it, and he's going to make sure everybody in the world knows about it, and it's going to create an issue in the locker room. And to that point, Mitch Morse even said, "I got shit to do." He don't want to hear about it. That was pretty evident in his press conference. He don't want nothing to do with it.
I know. I like to think we could just talk football and leave all the
Yeah,
sort of off the field stuff aside.
I agree. Don't make it a big thing.
So I wonder if it started even a little bit earlier than that Bengals playoff game. Because, Mike, I mean, you should remember this when he about ripped his bumper off
Yeah.
when he came storming over the curb after that Dolphins game. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't have a great game that time. And, I mean, he was from 3-4 feet away from my car. And, I mean, he came ripping down the shoulder. And it was just like, oh, okay.
He just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, like he was in a hurry, and it was quick after the game. You know, it wasn't. I mean, we were sitting there for a little bit, but it was half an hour or so. So he didn't hang around to do too much after.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got fans leaving that game before it's over, and you got him beating the fans out of there,
Yeah,
which they don't got to get changed or nothing. Mostly everyone's hopping in their cars and going. You know, if you're not hanging out there camping or whatever.
Yeah, I just think he needs to learn to control those emotions and learn how to handle those in a more constructive way, as opposed to making sure that the whole world knows that he's upset. That's really all it is. I still love Diggs as a player, and he's a great person. I know he does a lot for the community. I've had personal interactions with him at one of the games that we've talked about. I'm just saying, it just when things aren't going well, there's a different way to handle it, and I just hope that going forward, maybe that was part of the conversation too that McDermott had with him after the fact. He's like, "Look, we can talk about this. It's figured out, but let's do this in a more private manner so that we're not having to spend an entire press conference talking about it." Like, we don't even really know a whole heck of a lot about performances in mini camps because it was all just Diggs. But
Right.
we do have some, and so we'll move forward unless the two of you have anything to add to the Diggs saga.
the only thing I have to add is I think McDermott let his frustration out and like misspoke, used stronger words than I think he meant to during that first press conference. And I think he came out the next day and said it was an excused absence, so that way Diggs just doesn't get fined for the unexcused absence. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was them like kind of meeting in the middle to be like, oh, hey, like don't like I know we had our problem, like it was on both of us. We're not going to fine you for it. Like maybe we don't agree with how you handled the situation, but we're not going to, leave an even worse sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I don't think it was excused initially. I really don't. I think, and McDermott even made it one of the things he said during the press conference was something to the effect that the conversation kind of got heated a little bit, and they decided that they needed to kind of go, and away,
Take some time,
and
have some
and
space.
some time away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, that said that there was not a very constructive conversation initially that kind of blew up, and people were yelling at people in somebody's office probably, and Diggs got frustrated and left, and McDermott going into that press conference was clearly frustrated. So yeah, I don't think it was excused. I think that was just backtracking on the situation, but hopefully it's in the past. Hopefully this doesn't come up again. Hopefully, there's no other issues. And if there is, I just hope that they don't make a big public spectacle of it again. I mean, even with Diggs yelling at people on the sidelines, he's a very demonstrative player, and I respect the passion. I love the passion. I just wish he could learn how to kind of rein in how he handles that a little bit.
The sideline stuff bothers me the littlest amount. Look at all the players that yell at each other. I mean, Tom Brady is known for it. That was his thing. Screaming, getting in guys' faces. That was his thing.
Yeah.
Some people, that's just what they do.
And
So
I guess it depends on what they're screaming about, though.
yeah,
Like if it's, and I'm not saying that this is what Diggs is doing. I'm not saying that this was his problem, but the involvement in the game and not getting the target. He's the second most targeted receiver in the game. So I don't know necessarily that that's what it is. But if that's the case, then that's not something you should be yelling at your quarterback on the sideline. Well, throw me the ball, throw me the ball. Unless, I mean, hey, if Allen is genuinely missing him 9 times out of 10 when he's wide open, okay, let him know. I'm all for that.
Well, is
But
it
I don't
like
think that's the case.
is it like in key situations? They're not going to Diggs. Are they trying to get the ball to someone else? And is that
It did look like a couple times last year in big moments. He looked at Gabe, and like especially in like those like 13, 14, 15 comeback routes. I mean, he had Gabe Josh looked at
it's like
Gabe a lot more often.
afraid to go to him because because they're expecting it or whatever? But I mean, he's
Yeah,
not
I
trying.
think.
I mean, they bracketed Diggs so well in that Cincy
Yeah.
game where Josh
Yeah.
just stopped looking at him. He's not like, I don't care how good Diggs is. There's nothing
Yeah.
that he's going to be able to do with this football if I
Exactly.
can
And
get
I
it.
think.
Yeah,
I think that was something that was starting to build throughout the course of the year too, when teams' defenses started running that type of coverage on Diggs. It got to the point where he was no longer the first read because they knew he was going to be bracketed.
yeah,
Like, okay, let me look over here first, and maybe that's to his fault. Maybe he needs to trust Diggs a little bit more in those situations. But Diggs is also not a 6'4" high jumper kind of
Yeah.
receiver. He's so to throw it into bracketed coverage is not a good decision. I don't care who the receiver is, unless he's like a Mike Evans, who, like I said, like 6'4", 6'5", right? But
or he finds the open spot in the field.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see what happens this year. I hope that this doesn't lead to force feeding Diggs the ball, because then that's doesn't help either. But I don't think that's where this is going. I really don't. I think Diggs is a better person than just being a selfish receiver and wanting the ball all the time. I do think there's some other underlying things going on. Maybe it's with the offensive scheme. Maybe it's with the play calling. I don't know. But just show the emotions in a different way. Like, handle the frustrations in a different way. That's all I want. That's all I'm asking. Okay, let's move forward to other camp news. Um, First of all, with Dawson Knox, we haven't heard anything new other than he was at practice yesterday, but didn't participate. In what capacity he was on the sidelines, I don't know. Have you guys heard anything more than that?
I just saw he was doing individual drills along the
Yeah.
side with guys like, Von Miller and Jordan
Yeah.
Phillips. So
And he had
it was
to-
probably just like a safety precaution. Like,
Yeah,
we're not even going to do it on Thursday. Like, just don't worry about Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like, you were here Tuesday. You're good. You got your reps in. Just stretch. Make sure it's out. Make sure everything's okay, and be good to go come August or end of July.
I thought I read before I got on here he might have had it wrapped up, some sort of knee injury, maybe he had a collision.
Probably a little swollen.
Yeah, something like that. So
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't sound
too
like it's anything
serious,
to be
right.
too worried about. Yeah. And then, of course, Von Miller. What was it, a week ago ish? I think he tweeted out, made some comments about he was 100% medically cleared, and at this point, it's just kind of getting back into, the football
Football shape.
aspect of football shape and things like that. So, well, I mean, he's been saying for a while now that he's going to be or could potentially be ready week 1. And I've kind of defended that because a lot of people are like, "Oh, he tore his ACL. There's no way." It took Trey White a year. Yeah, but if you look at Von Miller, this is his second ACL tear. He did it back in 2013. He tore it in, I want to say, December of the previous year, and then he was ready week 1 the following year, and I think he recorded like 15 sacks. Now, I know he's like 10 years older now, so that's, part of it. But still, if you got a player whose body can heal that quickly, and this wasn't even a full tear, this was only a partial. Like, they didn't even know it was torn until they actually physically looked at it, like, oh, look, there's a tear. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's back week 1. What do you guys think, though, about maybe, okay, Vaughn, we know you can play week 1, but let's go ahead and push it out a month. Just to make sure you're good. We want to get you for the latter part of the season anyways. Do you think that may be what McDermott and this team do? Or if he's ready to go 100%, do they just let him go?
I mean, I think we got Floyd there for backup, or we kind of stacked it up a little bit at end. But I don't know if he's ready to go. I just you could just throw him in there, but maybe it wouldn't hurt to to wait. He said a lot of things, right? He's promised players coming here and this and that, and the goal is to stay off the injured list. But it would be great to see him week 1. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we kind of ease him into it instead of just going at it, full bore.
I think McDermott's just going to be like, all right, show me you're ready. Show me that you were back to the exact same spot you were when we gave you that contract. Show me that same explosiveness, or at least that you were on that track. You may not be 100% in football shape yet, but we can see it. There's no hesitation in any steps. There's no knee buckling or anything giving out. As long as he looks it and he feels it and he's 100% medically cleared, I think Von is somebody that the McDermott's going to have enough respect and trust in as the veteran player and the experience he's had with the same injury to where he's like, all right, if you're ready, let's go.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Vaughn says he's good to go, I think they trust that. Being a veteran player of his stature and has done this before, I think they would definitely trust that. Let's talk about really quick before we kind of get to the next thing we want to address. The Bills' front 4. I mean, it's almost a front 8 with the rotation that we're looking at right now. I mean, is this the best and deepest defensive line in football now?
No.
Did
Have
you
you
say
seen?
you cut out?
No. Have you seen the Eagles' defensive line?
That's the one that comes up a lot. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think they're
and
missing some
lost-
key pieces, maybe that
they may
The
have
Eagles
lost.
did lose a couple of guys.
They lost Hargrave, but they added Jalen Carter. They got Nolan Smith.
Rookie.
And look what the rookies did last year. Got them to the Super Bowl. I mean, that was the number 1 defense in all of football all year, and it was because they could get to the quarterback and led the league in sacks and this and that and this and that. Way better
And
than
they
the
got
Bills.
0
defensive
sacks
line.
in the Super Bowl.
Hey, man, still got them further than the Bills D-line did. Bills
Yeah,
got no
I do think with the players we have, there's a potential, with the right lineup that we can put up some really good stats this year on defense.
Yeah.
I think
If
we could
the
put up.
talent's there, if we can get it to gel and have it work well together.
The talent's definitely there. I to be considered number 1, I don't think that'll happen. I mean, they would have to blow numbers out of the water to be considered number 1. Like the number 1 defensive line as a whole defense, I definitely think the Bills could get back to that. The whole number 1 defense in the league. I mean, with how much healthier we're going to be this year. I mean, knock on wood, we should be compared to last year. I mean, last year was an injury bug. It's hard. I mean, it's not very often teams go through what the Bills went through 2 years in a row. So I think just getting healthier and the addition of the better players, experience of Epinesa and Boogie and Rousseau just getting better. I think the whole defense is going to be could be number 1, but the defensive line, no.
So 2023 Buffalo Bills number 1 in sacks ain't happening.
No, probably not. Number 1 in pressures, probably.
But if they were number 1 in sacks, we'd have to have gone pretty far at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, you can't use what Philadelphia did last year as a benchmark. They got 70 sacks, 2 away from the all-time record. So that's a little bit of an extreme example. And typically your sack numbers are, in the high 50s and 60s.
Yeah, like 54.
If they stay healthy with Leonard Ford, Rousseau, Miller, I have a feeling, we'll kind of talk about this one here in just a second with Oliver because this has come up a little bit lately. But Daquan Jones, Poona Ford, they got some guys in there now that I really think that if they stay healthy, they could potentially lead the league in sacks. Again, the health thing is always a question mark, right? It's always going to be. And you said injury bug last year. It's more like an injury pandemic.
Yeah.
But well, you know what? I'm going to save this next person. I was just about to name him. I'm going to save it for later when we talk about some of our breakout candidates. Because I actually have a couple of names that come up.
Well,
but,
how about we just merge right on into that one then?
If you want, we can.
Let's do it. Hit us, Paparon. What do you got?
Your breakout candidates. So the whole purpose of doing this, the whole reason why we came up with this one is because we actually posted a Twitter question earlier this week about it, and I was a little surprised at some of the names that were coming up. Balin Spector, I saw, was a name that came up. There was who was it? The two new receivers, Deontay Hardy. I saw his name. Like you go across the board, especially on the offensive side, and there was a bunch. But there was one that came up a lot that I don't agree with, and I want to talk about that one first, and that's James Cook. Before I kind of go into why I don't think that's a viable option for a breakout candidate for the Bills, let me hear from you guys. I'll start with you, Mike.
I was early on when we were talking about breakout players. He was one of the ones that I was thinking would be potentially one of the breakout players, and I think it's more because I don't know if it's going to happen or if you just want it to happen more or would like to see it happen more than it is a reality of happening. I mean, there's so much there at running back right now. You know, it's hard to say if he, being there's a rotation going on, so to be in the game all the time, you'd have to be, getting plenty of the snaps to even have to compete for that.
Yeah. I think maybe what your definition of a breakout would probably maybe change some answers too. But for you, Casey, what do you think as far as James Cook goes?
I mean, I think he broke out running last year. I think he was a much better runner than we expected him to be. I mean, he only had like 168 yards or something like that receiving, but he had 500 yards rushing on the ground, and I think everybody would have highly expected that to be opposite. Just the way everybody viewed him going into the season as like purely a pass-catching running back, couldn't run between the tackles. I'm so happy I'm able to say I told you guys so. I think there's just too much like depth at running back. I mean, I think he's going to be able to break out in the pass catching game aspect this year. I think he's finally. I mean, Devin Singletary, like his pass catching ability skyrocketed last year. I mean, early in his career, he couldn't catch a ball out of the backfield. And last year, I mean, he was great out of the backfield. So I think
he had over 200 receptions.
Yeah, receiving yards.
No, receptions. Over 200 receptions. The 4 years combined.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, whoa, that's a lot last year. I think that's a record.
All-time record set by the running back.
Yeah, by Devin Singletary of all of them. So I think James Cook more so stepping into that Devin Singletary role is just going to automatically boost his receiving numbers. So I think that's the way he's able to break out. But like as a true breakout, like 1,000-yard season on the ground and 500 through the air, I don't think is going to happen just because of the other running backs behind him on the roster.
Yeah, you guys basically just spelled it out exactly how I look at it too. Like there's going to be too many mouths to feed, if you will, in the backfield between him, Nyheim Hines, who we don't know how much involvement he'll have in the game, weekly game plan. I do think there'll be more so than last year. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say until I'm proven otherwise. I think Nyheim Hines will play more of that role like what we saw with McKinnon with the Chiefs last year. Not a whole lot of runs, but very active in the passing game. And then you add in Dameon Pierce and Murray. There's just not enough balls to go around for all four of them. Well, really three, because like I said, I don't think Nyheim Hines is going to play that big a role in the running game. But the other three, we don't run the ball that enough for any of those guys to break out. We just don't, and that's fine. I'm not one of those like we got to run the ball more. No, we don't. We just need to be more efficient when we do. That's it. But Casey, I'll start with you as far as the breakout candidates. Who do you got?
Like an easy, like common one, but I mean, someone we've been believers in for a long time is Khalil Shakir. I mean, we saw him. He was like that 4 or 5 receiver for us last year, and we heard that he kind of struggled learning the playbook, and that's why he was a little bit further down the depth chart. I mean, there was more experienced players too, obviously, but we saw when he got in the game, I mean, he performed extremely well. I mean, we saw his ability. I mean, to play a lot bigger than his true size. I mean, his ability to like go up and get it. I mean, some of those catches at double coverage were just incredible down the field. So I think if he can pick up on the playbook a little bit more, Get a little bit more. I mean, he has a whole year with Josh Allen now and a whole offseason where he's going to be given the true opportunity to become that slot receiver for Josh. I think there's a real opportunity for him to take a big step in this offseason and get a big role. I know we brought in Kincaid to be that big slot guy, but if Shakir can be that that 3-4 with Kincaid and just be kind of like a change of pace wide receiver, I'd love it. I think it's really possible. Josh trusted him in the playoffs, threw that touchdown to him against the Bengals. A lot of times late in games, he saw him down the field and hit him. So yeah. I think it's a possibility that Khalil Shakir could really be the one that pulls it out at number 4 spot wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping for that. And that is one name I have heard pop up here and there as far as the mini camps and stuff goes. That he's doing really well. And hopefully he makes that next jump. You got anybody else? Anybody else in mind that you think might be the breakout guy?
Dorian Williams, actually. I've been doing a lot, just really thinking about it. I think that I think he's gonna be the main starter next to Milano. I think
he's replaced your love affair for Spectre.
I just don't think they're going to give Spectre the fair shot. I mean, just in all reality, I think they're just going to see this athletic freak in Dorian Williams, who's quicker, faster. I mean, Spectre is built more. I mean, he's a bigger guy, like a true middle linebacker, and just kind of like a Tremaine Edmonds, just a little bit smaller in stature. So,
a little bit?
Hey, we're a lot. He's a little bit compared.
Yeah.
If they didn't necessarily want the Tremaine Edmonds body type there, they might not want Balin Spector. And Dorian Williams is closer to Matt Milano, a little bit smaller in size, but I mean, obviously still huge. But I think he's going to be the one that ends up getting the nod.
I'm actually kind of with you on that. What do you think, Casey or Mike? Who do you got for your breakout guy?
I'm going to go at corner. I think our guy, Kyrie Elam. I think he's going to show something this year, something special. So he showed a lot of promise last year. He was in the game and making some plays. So I'll have my eye on him. I want to see him do really well. It'd be awesome to have a really strong player there across from Trey.
Tied the team team lead in interceptions last year and was platooning the entire time. So I'd love to see a step up from that. Imagine what he could do full time.
Right.
It seemed like he really came on down the stretch too.
Yeah.
Those last maybe 4 or 5 games, it seemed like he was making at least 1 or 2 plays in each game. So that's an interesting one though, because I'm a huge Benford fan.
Yeah.
Christian Benford. So I don't know what McDermott's going to do with these guys. I don't. And then you add in Cam Dantzler, who we kind of talked a little bit about Dantzler before the show today, but I personally don't think he makes the team. Because he went from the Vikings to the Redskins, or I'm sorry, the Commanders, basically within a few months. What is it? Why do teams not want to even keep him around? What's going on there? I looked at his PFF scores from a year ago, and I know we've talked about PFF is it is what it is, but still he just hasn't played well, and I feel like that the team's pretty deep, regardless whether or not you like Dane Jackson or not. The team does. I don't think he can beat out Jackson. I don't think he can beat out Benford or Elam or White. You already got Taron Johnson, who is going to be your nickel guy. I just don't know if there's a place for Dantzler on the team.
So what if they're bringing in Dantzler to be the next Cam Lewis and train him to be the nickel behind Taron Johnson? Because we really don't have anybody that has experience playing nickel behind, other than Taron on the team right now. So maybe Dantzler, I'd have to go through his career and look to see if he has had any nickel snaps, but maybe that's what they're bringing him in to do.
I
think Taylor Rapp, though, has played some snaps at the slot.
True.
Or nickel, I mean.
True.
So, yeah, there's definitely some options there. And, I can't wait till training camp to see how these things start to unfold in the preseason and see how these guys do, because – the roster is stacked. It's not like in the past where you're like, oh my gosh, I hope EJ Manuel works out. It's like, I know one of these guys is going to work out, but which one? Mm-hmm. It's intriguing for a different reason. So
I can't wait to go to training camp. I'm
Here's
so
my boy
excited.
Woody. This is my good buddy Woody down in Watkins Glen. Huge Bills fan. I gotta throw him up there.
Dorian will
He
be a
likes
starter by week
Dorian.
3.
And he's
to
also a
watch
huge
Latavius.
Latavius fan, just like we are. So
Gotta be.
gotta love to see that.
By week 3.
Oh yeah.
I think Dorian takes this spot from week 1. I'm
Me
with you on
too.
that one, Casey. My breakout guy, I did see his name mentioned once or twice actually when we posted that question. And there's really, it's a little more difficult to quantify a breakout for this guy or this position, but I'm going right tackle Spencer Brown. I think he's been sitting there all offseason, all summer long, just watching all these Bills Mafia people trashing on him and saying, we need to replace him. He needs competition. He's not the answer. He's this, he's that. I think that's going to motivate the hell out of him, and he's going to come out and absolutely kill it. I do. We saw him as a rookie and like, ooh, this guy can play. As a rookie, coming from a small school. I just think that there was the injury last year, kind of slowed things down for him. I think the offensive line as a whole was not very good. And when you have a couple of holes on the offensive line, it makes everybody's job difficult or harder. So I think for me, he's the guy that steps up and balls out, and people completely forget about the position. Like, oh, yeah, we're good. We're solid. It's hard to quantify that position because there's no stats other than, how
PFF
often did you hear
grades.
your name called.
Yeah.
So those are my guys. I did have one other, but you already said the name there, Casey, which was
Dorian.
Khalil Shakir.
Oh.
Yeah. So
You know what I was also thinking is at the DN spot, like a Groot or an Epinesa, but I mean it's so stacked right there at this point that it's hard to say.
Epinesa easily could be somehow the one that blows up. I mean, when he came out of the draft, I mean, people were talking about him being a mid-first round pick. And then because of his size, he started sliding down. I mean, I understand we got him early in the second or as our second round, and we did trade up for him. But he had buttloads of potential. I was so excited when they got him because you see all these Iowa defensive ends come out and just ball out in the NFL. It's like, finally, we got one. We they say don't scout the helmet, but I scout that's one. There's bloodlines coming out of colleges, man. I mean, certain players come out of certain schools. I think he really could be it. He had the quietest 6.5 sacks ever. Last year, I mean, nobody talked about it at all, and he was tied. He was second? He was second or third on the team in sacks, and barely playing any snaps. So he could be the one that blows up out of that defensive end room.
Let me ask you then. He had 6.5 sacks last year, which is a decent number. What do you think he gets this year? If you put a number on it, what would you say?
Probably the same, 6.5, 7. I think a really good season would be 8, but I think 6.5 would probably be doable for him, especially if he got the same amount of snaps as last year. I think to get Groot and Von off the field, they're going to be bringing in Epinesa and Floyd. I think those are going to be the first two coming off the bench, and then it's going to be Shaq and Boogie. So I would love to see Epinesa get that chance, the same opportunity he was given last year.
So if he gets 8, do you call that a breakout?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I would think so.
Trending upward.
Yeah.
I guess it depends. I would say he would have to get in double digits if you want to say a breakout, because 8 sacks, it's only 1.5 more than what he had last year. But if you're talking about Von Miller, who is probably going to get double digits. We've already said, well, I think we all agree that Rousseau is going to get double digits. And now you've got Leonard Floyd in the mix too.
It depends on how many snaps you're getting too.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Similar to the running back situation, you got a lot of guys that are going to be rotating through there. So I don't think – I think 8 sacks is doable for Epinesa. I do. But, yeah, I don't know that I necessarily would call that a breakout. You mentioned a name a while ago, though. Let's kind of backtrack and talk about him really quick. And since we're on the defensive side, I'm going to post this question or this comment up here since we're talking about the defense. Be honest about the Bills' D, Ron. The D is great, but too old to be number 1 in the league. Outside of Miller, the rest are 30 or younger. I think Who else? I know obviously
Poyer,
Hyde and
Hyde.
Poyer are like 30, 31.
I mean, yeah, Poyer, Hyde, Puna's like 28, 29, I believe, 28. Daquan Jones, 31, 32.
That's right, he is.
Um,
I don't know
but
if
yeah,
they're
that's
that
the
old,
age, though. I mean, Tre'Davious is getting up there. I mean,
He's still in his 20s.
what, 2018 or what, 2016 draft is when he came out, 2017?
Yeah, so he's later 20s.
So, I mean,
But
yeah, he's 20, 27, 28. Oh, God, that's me.
I just don't
Oh.
think that they're. You're old.
Oh, God.
I just don't think that the age is an issue at this point for this defense just yet. Now, who knows? Maybe Von Miller goes out there and hits that proverbial age wall and just drops like we've seen, players do before.
Or he
I
turns
don't
into
think that's
Julius
gonna-
Peppers,
Yeah,
the
I
ageless
don't-
one.
Yeah. Every time
But
I
I
turn
don't-
around, I'd see him and be like, "Wait, he's still playing?"
Dude, and still getting 9.5 sacks every season. Every
I know.
season.
Yeah. But let's go back. There's the one name that you mentioned. I think Mike, you said it was one of you two was Boogie Basham. I'm starting to wonder if he can even make the roster this year.
Do you think he and
there's a
Shaq are
lot-
the two fighting for the last spot?
Probably. And if that's the case, age aside, because if you're just going to look at that, then obviously you go with the younger guy. But I think at this point in their careers, at least from what we've seen in the past, Shaq is probably the better option, the better player. But at the same time, year 3 is when defensive linemen typically break out, since that's what we're using today. So is this the year that Basham breaks out? Do you think he makes the roster, or do you think he might be in trouble?
I think he'll make the roster just being a second-round pick 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it is. This is his third year. So I think,
Going into third?
yeah, I think that being a second-round pick, they're not cutting bait that quick.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time.
No, but I mean, at least, but Cody Ford was exceptionally bad. No, he wasn't Boogie bad. As poorly as Boogie has played, it's not Cody Ford bad.
But we also threw in the towel early on Wyatt Teller. I mean, there's been a couple of instances.
Again, that was also a 5th-round pick that we saw in camp, and we were like, all right. And every time you bring up Wyatt Teller, I'm going to say thank you to Wyatt Teller for getting us Josh Allen.
Yeah, he was part of that whole process, those trades. I was gonna go somewhere with it, and then I lost it. That's part of being old, 47, right?
Well, I think you were talking about whether he was on the fence or not making the team, and I think he's we do have quite a few people there, but I hate to see players come and go so quick like that, So I hope he hangs on. I see him staying around.
Thank you. I did remember the point I was going to say is I don't think McDermott and this staff looks at draft position when they're making a decision on who to cut or not. I think if they believe that he is not going to be the guy this year or at any point, that they cut bait. I don't think they're the kind of organization or staff that keeps people around just because they were a second-round pick or a first-round pick or whatever the case may be. But I hope he makes the team. I don't have anything against him, obviously. But at the same time, if he didn't make the team, then that means somebody else that we like isn't going to.
Right.
Because to Mike's point, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys on that defensive front, and somebody's gonna get cut. So, and talking about the defensive line, here's another one. DJ Dell could be still with his experience and upside. He won't be the main guy, but he will be great, man. So this is another one that I don't think he makes a 53-man, but I could definitely see him making the practice squad.
Oh, yeah.
Being maybe a future guy on that line in the rotation.
He'll be one of those guys that's like gets the first call-ups. When someone gets dinged, Tim Settle goes down, Daquan Jones goes down, Puna goes down, any of them, that he's going to be the first one that gets called up, I bet.
So what does that mean for Jonathan Kingsley?
Kingsley's more a defensive end.
Yeah, there's a lot of names on that front. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon Bryant would have been the one I'd been more concerned about getting called up over DJ Dale, but now he's gone.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. So those are the breakout guys. if somebody in the comments has got another name that they want to throw out there, we'll definitely talk about it. But we're go ahead and backtrack now, and we're gonna. It's just even crazy to me that we are having the conversation. Like, how is that even a question? But Casey, I'll start with you on this one. What is your idea of elite? Like, what does a player have to do for you to consider him being elite? Here's where this comes from. I don't know how. I said something on Twitter, but somebody was like, well, Josh isn't elite. And I was like, what? Are you kidding? How is he not elite? And then there's all this, well, he can't win the big game. Oh, Joey Burrow beat him and Patrick Mahomes beat him. So he's never been to the Super Bowl, and those other two guys have. And I'm not a big fan of Wentz being a quarterback stat. And by saying that, I'm also saying that just because a quarterback has a multitude of accolades does not necessarily make them the best to ever play the position. A lot of people feel differently, and that's fine. I think you got to look at the whole picture in totality, like the scheme, the players around him, the accolades, like all of it. And I know Josh hasn't been in the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know that. But he's a top 3 quarterback at least, right?
I mean, so look at Tom Brady. I mean, he has the rings, I mean, the records, all of it. I mean, so he, to me, greatest of all time. He has everything put together. He has built the best resume to be named the best quarterback of all time, the most elite of the elite.
Beyond elite.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is, the gold standard. Josh has played elite because he's able to do things that, some things that not even Patrick Mahomes has been able to do. And Mahomes has been able to do things that Josh Allen's never been able to do. But we've seen him be able to carry a team, like, no matter what. I mean, through that elbow injury, that dart, that 40-yard absolute laser that he had to dig against the Lions. I mean, that's an elite throw. I mean, just to get your team back in that, when the 13 seconds game, when we were down and he brought that, for a minute, I was like, damn, we let this one get away. Like, we were good. And then all of a sudden Josh is like, all right, like, let's go, Gabe. And it looked like Josh was like, I'm going to just throw every single dart I have. He's like, I'm just going to make any throw that if I see it, I'm doing it. I don't care what the risk reward is going to be. And he's able to pull those off. So I think that's his resume for being elite. To me, there's different ways to become elite, whether it's the accolades, and it can't be, Pro Bowls. Pro Bowls don't mean anything anymore. It's got to be league MVPs.
We've talked about that one.
Offensive Player of the Year. Winning your division. 4 times now. We've seen him progress from being garbage to elite. So we understand. We can see the progression that he's made. And we know that he's not, as we were talking about earlier, Kirk Cousins. We don't just have those rose-colored glasses on. But to be elite, there's different ways you can get there. But it all boils down to what am I seeing on the field? And then, what are your accolades? And then to build the best of the best, of all time, to me, it's putting those two together.
Yeah.
Right on.
What do you got, Mike?
I don't know. I was just thinking, so has there ever been a quarterback made the Madden cover wasn't an elite quarterback?
Peyton Hillis was not an elite. That's a good one. That's a good one. Peyton Hillis wasn't an elite running back, in elite season 1, but.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, Vince Young, that's the one.
Yeah, you're talking about the 13-second game and just getting into the shootout with the best of the best, and he's in the same conversation with Mahomes and Burrow and them guys. There's a certain few that are right near the top right now, and he's one of them. So definitely in that category. And like you said, might not be Tom Brady, but I think there is beyond elite. I don't know if that's the thing, but I think we can consider him that. You don't have to be that, because then you're talking
you don't have to be Tom Brady good to be considered elite.
Tom Brady is truly
the group of elite
generational.
quarterbacks is not one.
Yes, we can throw around generational at time. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing. most of the people that were kind of like shooting back at me saying he's not elite, were all pointing to basically the playoff losses. Like there's 31 starting quarterbacks that lose in the playoffs or don't even get there. So first of all, that point is an ignorant one to me. Secondly, again, you got to look at the whole thing in totality. You look at the numbers of the fact that they've been there. Like the Bills, I don't know the exact number, but in the last 3 years, they're one of the most winningest teams in the NFL. Okay? You get into the playoffs, and you look at what Josh did in those playoffs, he's not the reason they lost them. Now, you could probably put a lot of that in the Cincinnati game, but that's the whole team. The whole
Bengals
team.
game, that was the entire Bills Mafia and team and town of Orchard Park as a whole. Trust me, we were there. It was not just the team. We all had a hand in it.
Yeah, so we'll discount that one because the whole team was just
The vibe was
they
just
weren't there. Yeah, I don't know, but prior to that, his QB rating is one of the top 5 in the history in the playoffs. The fact that they've gotten there, they've won 4 playoff games, 5.
Something like that, or right around there.
And you look at other quarterbacks, aside, I know that there's going to be a few of differences, but most of them are about 50-50 in the playoffs. Because if they weren't, then that means that they're winning every single year in the playoffs, and they're winning 5-6 Super Bowls straight. Now, maybe Tom Brady, his winning percentage in the playoffs is probably like 700. And I know Mahomes is probably up there pretty high too. But for the most part, it's about 50-50 as far as that goes. It's just, I never even thought that there would be people out there that don't look at him as elite. Even non-Bills fans, I thought, well, like everybody knows that. I mean, he's one of the best in the league. How is he not elite?
We all know Tua's better than Josh. Okay.
yeah.
You're right. Okay, well,
Tua's got
a
bigger, can throw the ball way further. You know, he's way more everything than Josh, according to Twitter. So don't believe everything you read online, kids.
No.
Especially Twitter.
Especially the tweeter.
All right, I don't think we need to really talk too much more about it. I think we all agree Josh Allen is elite. He's going to get the Super Bowl eventually, we hope.
Too good not to. He's going to, whether he's going to be in Buffalo. No, he's too good not to. Aaron Rodgers got his one. Brett Favre got his one. Drew Brees got his one. Eli Manning got 2. I mean, come on. So
Fran Tarkenton didn't get any. Marino didn't get any. Kelly didn't get any.
Josh Allen's too good. Josh Allen's too good to not get one. And whether it's going to be with Buffalo or not, that's the question. Oh. I'd bet my life on it.
Oh, don't say that.
Ooh. Conversation for next week?
Maybe.
He's a Buffalo for life.
We don't want to go there.
No, let's not. We're going to move on. We're going to move on right now.
Remember when Aaron Rodgers was at Green Bay for life? I don't want to go anywhere.
Brett Favre?
Or Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few of them. I mean, you can even go back to like Joe Namath. He didn't finish his career with the Jets. Like there's a bunch of them that didn't. So that's a possibility, but we're not going to talk about it. We're moving on. Respect your elders. What's the question for us today?
All right, Paparon. Who is going to be the one surprise player that's going to make the 53 that, like, you personally could be like, I did not see that coming?
Well, did not see coming, or the guy that I think most people don't see coming. Because for this guy that I'm going to say, I think he makes a team. I think he makes a roster. I think the team has plans for him. Speaking of which, before I name him, I do want to jump back a minute on we're going to jump around a little bit. The breakout players, one other name I wanted to throw in there that I think some people might be a little surprised at and probably even tell me I'm an idiot, and that's totally fine. Ed Oliver.
I'm surprised we didn't get around to that because
me too.
I meant to a while ago and then I forgot, but I just think with the extension and everything, with McDermott taking over this defense, I think he has a plan specifically for Oliver to get him in the game and get him in the game plan and move him around and use him in ways that we have not seen him use before because he is quick. He is very fast, and he's just not a bull rush kind of guy. So you got to get him out in the open and in the space and one-on-one situations where he can use that athleticism. And I think McDermott has a plan for him, and I think we're going to see him break out.
All right.
All right. Back to the question. Who do I think, a dark horse, if you will, to make the team? We need some safety help, right? Not now, but we're going to down the road. There's a name, the very first free agent signing of this season, nobody has mentioned. And I keep going back
Zane
to
Anderson.
I think
Really?
he makes this team. I do. He's 6'2", a little over 200 pounds, good physical size for the position. But here's something else that I don't know if a lot of people know. He runs a 4.44 40. Try to say that a few times fast. 4.44 40.
That's a commercial.
Faster.
I was going to say,
than
okay,
Hyde.
William Matar.
He's faster than Micah Hyde, faster than Poyer, faster than Hamlin, faster than any of the safeties we currently have. I think there's a world where I think that's why they brought him in. I think that's why they signed him. Looking down the road, we're going to bring you in now. You're going to learn this defense. You're going to learn under two of the best safeties in football, and then you're going to be the guy in 2024 or 5, depending on what Poyer and Hyde do after this season.
All right, that answered the question. I mean, that fulfilled me because I was not expecting that to be a name that you were going to bring up. So that was perfect. I love it.
Thorough answer too. Yeah.
Mike, you got
Here's
anybody
one.
off the top of your head?
That's gonna
Just
make
shorter.
the team.
Shorter, I love it. Woody, I completely agree.
Shorter,
with
I
that.
know. I was talking about him a little before the show, and I'd love to see him get in there and do something. Bigger receiver, got some size to him. But man, looking around here, it's tough because you want to say who's not going to make the team, and then pick from that list of players, and it's like there's none. And then I don't know. I'd have to write them all down and count them all, but he Shorter definitely was on my list. I know you might have mentioned Alex Austin earlier, cornerback that people might have been saying.
Not Austin.
Alec
He's a
Anderson.
corner.
Oh,
the
Anderson.
left tackle or the
Oh,
offensive
is that what you
tackle.
said? I see.
Yeah, he's a name that I've heard kind of pop up from time to time, and kind of people that are closer to the team. That he might be somebody that some Bills fans may not know, that might be surprised to find out about come training camp and preseason games.
Yeah,
which
You
would
know
be
what?
great. We could use the extra depth on the tackle position. I'm 100% confident. We already talked about Spencer Brown, that he's going to be okay at the right tackle and he's going to lock that position down. We got Deion Dawkins, but we could definitely use somebody for depth at the tackle position because we don't have a lot. That's the one area that I think the offensive line is a little weak in as far as depth goes.
Yeah. So the last name I want to bring up is Jalen Wayne, just because of the name.
Just the name. His name alone.
Yeah.
Tell everybody who's listening who Jalen Wayne is.
Well, I think he's the nephew of Reggie Wayne, right?
He is the
He
nephew.
is,
of
all
Reggie.
right. So I like Reggie
if
Wayne. He's a very good receiver. So
You got Reggie Wayne blood flowing through you. You got to
Hey,
give him a shot.
I was just gonna, yeah.
It's gotta kick in sometime.
So that would be
Yeah.
a pleasant surprise, maybe.
Who
other
do you
than
got,
that-
Casey?
I don't think I have much other than that.
So I wasn't planning on answering this question. I was planning on asking it.
Well, we have a little bit of time to kill.
So somebody who I think is going to make the team, that's going to be a surprise, Cam Dantzler. I think they are going to keep him around because we signed Xavier Rhodes just last year to do the exact same thing. I mean, I know we were hurting in all 4 of our starting corners. I mean, last year we literally had 4 starting corners on the outside. They all got hurt at some point or were hurt and coming back. So we had to sign Xavier Rhodes, and he was the bottom of the barrel. So I think they were getting out ahead this time, getting bodies on the decent starting players in the NFL on the back end of this roster, and here come training camp, and when something happens, not an if but when, because injuries are going to happen no matter what we think. be prepared. I think they're trying to get out ahead of it this season and be proactive and not reactive. So I think Cam Dantzler might have a real shot if he performs well in camp.
That is a good point, bringing in somebody to for that depth to learn the defense now as opposed to in season when obviously it's a little harder to teach somebody a defense and things like that. So
Be preemptive.
I just looking at the numbers and some of what I've read about Dantzler, he just hasn't been able to get it done at this level, and that's the reason why he's starting to bounce around. But maybe this is where he needs to be. Maybe this is the team that is able to unlock that potential because there is potential in there. He has the physical traits to do it. I believe he was a relatively high draft pick. I think we talked about that. I think
I think
first.
It was first or second.
Was it first or second?
Yeah.
So yeah, the traits are definitely there. And if there's one area of this team that consistently this team finds talent and develops it, it is the secondary. Like that's the one area that they constantly bring in people and like, oh, this guy can play. Christian Benford, Micah Hyde, and Poirier, when they first came over here, people were like, who are these guys? Like Hyde was a relatively known player, but not to the level he is now. Poirier, I don't even think he was a starter at Cleveland. I could be wrong on that.
He popped on and off the 53.
Yeah, and I remember when they signed him, I was like, okay, who is this one? And those two have just absolutely dominated back there, arguably the best duo in football. So that's one area that this team is good at, finding guys and developing them. So maybe this is where he needs to be. Maybe Dantzler can find a spot on this roster, and maybe it's on special teams.
Hey, we saw
injuries and things like that.
Jordan Phillips come here, get 10 sacks in a season or 9.5 sacks, whatever, and turn it in one season with Buffalo, turn it into a payday, and so
and
they're able
back.
And then came back. But like we saw, like some people are like, I mean, it is sometimes truly system dependent. So maybe this is one of those cases where, all right, he fits the system, he understands it, everything just kind of gelled and it worked out. And now we have a great depth piece.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I hope all 90 players on the roster are like all-stars. Like, I'm not going to say all-pro. We're not going to go Pro Bowl. They're going to be all-pro. No. And Coach McDermott has the most difficult decisions in the world to make by cutting, what would that be, 37? 37 all-pros.
What a legend.
Good luck.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. It's a few minutes early, but that's totally fine. We'll be back, of course, next week. Well, speaking of next week, these two guys will be back next week. I'm going on vacation. I'm actually going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, taking the family out to Pigeon Forge. We're having a big family reunion out there.
Nice.
So,
my wife was there last year, Pigeon Forge.
Okay. I've never been to Tennessee. Well, I've been through Tennessee, but never actually visited or anything. So that's where I'm going to be next week. These two guys, Casey and Michael, hold down the fort for me. Make sure you tune in, give them hell, comment, tell them they suck, whatever you want to do.
You can comment, tell us we suck.
I just might do that. I might hop on for a minute and be like, "What's up, guys? You suck."
Thanks.
The ultimate troll job.
Don't forget we got AJ up next too.
That's right.
AJ analysis with the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast. He is up next here in just a couple of minutes, so stay tuned for that. And all of the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast shows throughout the week. There's a great lineup of people, some of the best content creators on the planet. Check them all out. And for the Mafia Cast, we are out of here. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.